Right, good afternoon everybody. I'm Ian Mackey, the Chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee, and a very warm welcome to members this afternoon and people viewing online. I'd first like to welcome you all to this committee meeting and quickly go through some general housekeeping before we start. As I've already said, the meeting is now being held in person at County Hall and is being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel, and a recording will be available to view afterwards. A fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If an alarm does sound, we must evacuate County Hall. In the event of emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point, which is located on the main County Council car park. When using microphones this afternoon, as usual, if you can just press the bar to switch on, move the speaker towards you and then turn off again afterwards, and the camera will be able to pick you up when you are speaking this afternoon. That is everything on housekeeping. So if we're okay, I'll move on to the main agenda. I'm going to ask Megan, well, I don't need to ask Megan for any apologies or substitutes because we're all here in full fettle. So welcome again to all members this afternoon. It's great to see everybody here. So we can move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of July. Has anyone got any matters of accuracy, etc. they want to point out on the minutes? No? Mark?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to record, I wasn't here, so I won't be agreeing to the minutes.
Okay. No? If anyone else, are we happy to take those and agree those minutes? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Megan. Very comprehensive and thorough as always. I'll just sign these. Thank you very much indeed. I'll leave those there. Right, we've got members to declare any interests on today's agenda, please. Anybody got anything to declare? No, nothing to declare, as they say as I go through the airport. Right, updates from the Chairman. So I've got a few items here I just want to reflect on. And firstly, I'm very pleased to inform the committee that we've got Jack Emerson with us this afternoon as a member of the audit team and has successfully completed his internal audit practitioner apprenticeship. And Jack has now been promoted from trainee auditor to full auditor here at the County Council. So Jack, on behalf of the County Council and this committee, I'd like to extend our warmest congratulations to you. I've taken a photograph of you and your certificate earlier, and we're delighted to see you in this role. And as we grow our apprenticeship here in the county, it's nice to see people who leave from apprenticeships into full employment with us. So many congratulations and warm welcome to your new position. Yeah. So, there we are. I think you're the first officer ever to be clapped by the Audit and Governance Committee, so I'd make the very most of that. So well done and congratulations yet again. At the previous meeting, the committee expressed a further interest in exploring the risk associated with extreme weather events. What we've asked for is that a presentation on this topic will be delivered at the meeting on the 25th of November. And I gather this is a relatively short agenda today because we had quite a thorough one in July, and we've got more to come in November. So at that meeting, there will be a presentation for members on that particular item. That's everything from myself. And now we're going to move on to item 5, which is the risk management report, which is on page 13. I think Thomas Osborne is going to take us through that. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. So just by way of an update in terms of page 19, which is Appendix A of the report, you will note that at time of publication, given that we had the Cabinet meeting only 2 days prior to this meeting on 13th of October, at the time of publication, the proposed changes were subject to sign-off. Happy to report that all of the proposed changes were indeed signed off by Cabinet, so they can be taken as given. So there's a few changes to update members on. I'll attempt to summarise them as I go through, and I've categorised them according to the nature of the updates. So in terms of new risks, we have 4 new corporate risks which have been agreed by Cabinet. We've got RM48, which is Norfolk County Council's controlled entities, RM49, which is the West Winch Housing Access Road, RM50 devolution, and RM51 local government reorganisation. In terms of risk score changes, we've got a few changes to report here as well. There's been a score change to RM30, which is the non-realisation of children's services transformation change and expected benefits. So this risk score has been increased from 10 to 15 by raising the likelihood score from 2 to 3. The likelihood score has been raised to possible based on the current position at period 3 of this financial year. And there is a significant challenge in relation to the placements budget, and the risk score has been increased accordingly. We've also got a risk score to RM33, the Norwich Western Link risk. So that has decreased from 20 down to 15 by reducing the likelihood score from 4 to 3. And that follows the standalone report to July Cabinet on the next steps for the project and the acceptance of the recommendations of that report by Cabinet. And accordingly, the risk has been updated to reflect the path forward for the project, which includes the reduction in the risk score. We have RM35 as well, which is the adverse impact of significant and abnormal levels of inflationary pressure on revenue and capital budgets. So the current risk score has been decreased from 20 down to 15. Again, that's a decrease in likelihood from 4 down to 3. And the nature of this change is due to inflationary pressure having reduced from previous abnormal levels, and current inflation levels are remaining relatively stable at the moment. We've got a score change to RM45A, delivery of care services, older people. So again, the current risk score has been decreased from 16 down to 12 by decreasing the current likelihood from 4 to 3. And we're able to evidence that we are able to access care and meet the demand for this. And whilst there is clearly still a risk, the likelihood of provider failure or not enough care capacity to meet the demand has reduced. And finally, on the score change side, we've got RM46, which is the increased spend on home-to-school transport. And the current risk score has been increased from 8 up to 12 by increasing the impact score from 2 to 3. Finally, we've got a risk closure to report, which is RM13. So that's the risk of governance protocols for entities controlled by the council. So this risk has effectively been closed with a replacement risk in RM48, which I ran through at the start. And the nature of the risk has shifted away from not having appropriate governance in place for our wholly owned entities to the risk of those not being aligned with our objectives set of them. And finally, we've got a risk demotion, RM27 on My Oracle. So this risk has been moved down to be treated at departmental level now rather than corporate level. The HR improvement programme and interim measures have now been closed down following the agreed target criteria having been met, and that's been validated by user feedback. And we are now in a business as usual state with the processes aligned accordingly to help support that going forward. And we've got one final change on the risk description side, which is to RM33, and that's the Norwich Western Link project. So again, following the standalone report to July 2025 Cabinet, with the recommendations of that report being agreed, the risk description has changed, that sets out the next steps for the project and has been incorporated in the risk description there for the project. So I'll pause there for any members' questions or comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. Very comprehensive on the changes. I'm going to open it to members now if they've got any questions. I've got Councillor Kittle-Morris, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is home-to-school transport RM46. I think my division is quite similar to other divisions around the county, which mine's very rural. I do have one high school in my division, in the centre of it. But the feeder schools, i.e. the primary schools that feed into that, in the last 5 years have had 3 close, one last September. Then the home to school transport for those children who are displaced from the closed school falls on the county council. And I think if you go back about 3 or 4 months, I seem to remember there was a report to the Communities Committee, Select Committee, that said Litcham, which is the centre of my division where there's a high school, was a red area for school because they had year 9, I think, in last year was 118 pupils. The intake of the 10 primary schools, which Children's Services say feed into Litcham School, had 45 children go into reception last September. So you can see the falling roll there. What my concern is that a school which supposedly has about 750 children in it could actually close in 3 or 4 years' time, putting an enormous strain because that academy would then have to be, those children have to go to the other academy of school, which is about 20 miles away, and that's another strain on the thing. And if that's happening across Norfolk, which I suspect it is in very rural places, there needs to be more emphasis on school closures and the subsequent, I suppose, corporate responsibility to get children to and from school. I'll wait. I've got one more, Chairman, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
But I'll do that after.
Yes, so you're actually asking then, Mark, about the strategy which is being put in place to look at this sort of triangulation of having the school closed and then more costs onto home to school transport, and then if you don't have growth in a village, you don't get the numbers. There is a sort of there's a connection in all of this, and I'm not really convinced yet that this is all being made. But
well, Chairman, that's really why I raised it, because it's not in the in the preamble or the other bits of the of the literature we've got in front of us. So well, I think it's something that should be taken on board and looked at quite closely, because as you quite rightly say, it does depend on development and affordable homes in villages that actually allow children to live in the villages rather than us old duffers who buy the big houses and etc.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, isn't it? You've got to have the suitable housing for the schools to be maintained, etc., rather than building a new school in a new estate and you've lost the old one. But Thomas, what is the insight on this, and also Children's Services with the, there's a big, synergy between the planning, which is the district activity, and also our alignment with our school building programme. Developers would like to put up new schools with new developments when there's actually existing schools nearby. But I think the principal point is how this risk is being assessed in terms of the impact of small school closures on home to school transport costs.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor. So I think it's a question that I can certainly bring back to Children's Services. I think it would require further input from them to include any mitigations that we're putting in place on that point that we can include next time for the risk. I'm afraid I don't have a comprehensive answer without the specialist knowledge required that would come from my colleagues in Children's Services, but more than happy to take it back to them and ask for further input into the risk on that very point.
Well, hold that thought, because I know Councillor Kittle-Morris has got another question, and then I think Councillor Vincent's been doing some work on home school transport. I think it's an area of, it's been reported in recently in the newspaper, hasn't it, about the increase in expenditure. So we'll hang on to that thought, and we'll go to Mark for his second question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at RM001 or 01, and it's infrastructure funding requirements. Now, there is a problem in planning, in that obviously when homes are built, this council puts on a request for funds for education, libraries, etc., etc. There is a feeling, I suppose, abroad that actually the thing to lose last is going to have to be affordable homes. So when you do a viability assessment, which is done quite often these days on planning applications for affordable home, especially for affordable homes. Those are the things that go last. And I think there could be a problem for this council in getting the the input from those developments that they think they need to do the job, because I don't think the viability of those developments would be a go, particularly when we need to have the affordable homes rather than contributions to libraries and schools. And I think that's where the problem lies in funding this, and that's not in this paper in terms of how do we square that circle with getting the funding for things we need to do and bolstering our budget against what actually the local planning authorities have to do, is to deliver affordable homes, as we've said in the last thing about the other home to school transport. We need affordable homes for people to go to school, but we also need affordable homes rather than funding other things rather than affordable homes, if you see what I'm getting for.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think sometimes, you know, you do get the opinion that affordable housing is one of the first things to go when on new developments, and they'd much sooner give a grant than actually delivering the houses what people actually need. So it's a very, very, you know, timely observation. I think most people in nearly every division has had very similar. I've got one at the moment that they've dwindled and dwindled down to next to no affordable homes. Thomas, any thoughts on what Mark has said there?
I think in terms of looking at this, again, happy to consult specialist officers who would be looking at this day to day in more detail. And I think in terms of a general comment, I think whilst the local authorities' objectives on any housing scheme will largely tally up with the developers, there are differences obviously in objectives of the housing company involved as opposed to ourselves as a local authority. So there's always going to be a degree of objectives being slightly separate from each other, but it's something that I can look into with, as I said, our planning officers to see if there's any further mitigations that can be put in to acknowledge that element of the risk.
Okay, thank you. Any other points?
Just a comment really, Chairman. I think I know in Market Town, very near where I live, there was £1 million requested for 45 homes, which was clearly making that development not viable, even though the affordable housing element had already gone. So there are things around which actually need looking at, because we need to build homes, and the government is telling local planning authorities they've got to build 1.5 million homes in the lifetime of this government, and 30% or 25% of those have got to be affordable homes. And if we don't do that 25%, then we will be penalised for not doing so.
That's very important. And I certainly know our own Repton Homes has been doing some great work in this space, and long may it continue. It may well have to be the vehicle that we move towards. But any other points on any of the risks people want to raise? No? Oh yes, Councillor Penfold.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of questions around RM036, I think that's right, which is the non-delivery of the environmental policy and climate action plan. I don't know whether non-delivery or success of they're two different things. I'm sort of struggling with a bit, but I'm just looking at the rollout of electric vehicles, which is part of the mitigation of the risk. And in the progress update, it says we're evaluating options and business cases for electric vehicles. So I'm just wondering where we are with that, given that I think our EV strategy was put in place in October 21 or something like that. So that's quite a while ago. It's 4 years ago. So are we still evaluating options and business cases for electric vehicles, given that the strategy is 4 years old, or have we have we come to a realisation of what we ought to be doing with that?
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in terms of the EV strategy, is this about rolling out the infrastructure, or actually, because I know certainly the County Council has invested heavily in electric buses. Is this about cars?
Well, that's part of the question, I guess, because
Right.
it says electric vehicles, so it's slightly vague.
Yes.
You assume cars, but it would be buses. Whether it's, I assume it's our fleet as well.
Implementation of the EV strategy. I imagine it may well be infrastructure to service people rather than us doing it. But anyway, we'll ask Thomas what he thinks.
Thank you. Yeah, so my understanding is it is the electric vehicle fleet for the county council, but also looking at the wider element for Norfolk as a whole. Given that this looks at both for us as a council in terms of the non-delivery of our environmental policy and the climate action plan, but ultimately it takes into account the county of Norfolk as well as from an internal perspective to Norfolk County Council in terms of our fleet. What I will do is clarify with the Director for Procurement to just get clarification on progress here. I appreciate that it's not entirely clear from the risk the levels of progress that have been made with this, so I will clarify that and happy to report back to the committee. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be great. You know, there's been lots of news about the new bus fleets being rolled out, but things do seem to have gone a bit quieter on the electric vehicle side of things. I know there's been additional stuff, you know, implemented in the city. I don't know whether there's been wider issues, but it'd be interesting to find out how we're getting on, particularly with our own fleet. That'd be great. Any other questions on the corporate risk register? No? If not, we'll move to the recommendations, which is consider and agree the latest, and you'll see that their recommendations, the key messages, key changes, the corporate risk heat map, the corporate risks at October 25, and the information in this report is sufficient. And I think we've identified a few areas where we'd like to get some further information at the next committee meeting. The one thing I would like to explore in a little bit more detail before we go to the saying yes is around this home to school transport. I don't know, Councillor Vincent, do you want to mention anything about your work, or is it worth? No, we're not a scrutiny committee, but we do follow the money.
I have to say, Chairman, I can't take credit for that since I've stepped down from the Children's Services Cabinet role, so I'm not fully up to date with where things are just at the moment, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, perhaps, Thomas, you can ask and come back with a more comprehensive, you know, outline, because there's quite a bit in the newspaper recently and other local business people talking about this. And of course, it is very much more complex than saying, why doesn't the County Council employ 500 taxi drivers? Well, that would be significantly more in terms of cost, and also it's not quite as easy as you think. So perhaps they can give us some information at the next meeting. Okay, and are we happy to agree those recommendations? Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Now we move to the Anti-Fraud, Corruption and Whistleblowing Report. This is 1st of April to the 30th of September. I know Andrew is meant to be here, but he has been leading some quite rigorous activity at the moment. So I think Adrian is going to lead on this report for us. Is that right?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to present this report, and the Director of Legal Services and Monitoring Officer can't be here, so sends her apologies. But I'm very happy to present this report to you today. This is one of our regular reports on the work that we're doing in the anti-fraud, corruption, whistleblowing area. This report sets out, Andy's been doing lots and lots of work, some of it reactive and some of it proactive and preventative. So this report sets out that work. It lists down some details of the cases. There's been a few cases that 4 reports of potentially fraudulent activity were identified in it, and the report sets out the details of those. No cases resulted in formal criminal investigation, However, we do always look to see whether there are any lessons to be learned and continual improvement. I think the other key point that was in there was about the failure to prevent fraud offence that is now live, and that is something that Andy has put some details into the anti-fraud and corruption policy that we have. So on page 84, the new details of that are mentioned in the policy as they should be on page 84. So we ask that the committee would confirm that they're happy with those words for that policy. Other than that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Adrian on this? We had quite a lengthy report last time, but this is another one of those. Any questions on this? If not, it's pretty much self-explanatory. There's a very useful update on what's been going on. Thanks to Andy and his team for his proactive and reactive works, and long may it continue with his investigations. If that's the case, I will move to the recommendations, which is to consider and agree the key messages featured in this report, and the work and assurance meets the requirements and advise if any further information is required, which is not. The committee is asked to approve the update on the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption policy, specifically the addition of the failure to prevent fraud offence, section 5 of the draft policy, and that has been what Adrian was referring to earlier. Are we happy to agree those two things? Agreed? There we are. Thank you very much indeed, Adrian. We move on to item 7, which is the Norfolk Audit Services quarterly report for the period ending the 30th of September, and we've got Jackie is here to... You'll be doing this one, Adrian? Yes. And, well, Jackie is here anyway, if we've got any questions. So we'll ask Adrian to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, this is the last of our regular updates and reports to the committee, and this covers the work of the internal audit team. There's a number of reports that they're being worked through. So this report explains that the work that we've been doing, and I'm pleased to confirm that the opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of the Council's control framework is acceptable and continues to be acceptable, so that's good to see. So the report sets out the sort of changes that have been happening in terms of the internal audit environment, and we're working on the new standards that have been introduced and embedding those, and also we're refining our agile working arrangements in terms of how that's delivered and how that helps to make our audit work more effective. At 2.2 on page 94, that just sets out the status of the work from the current plan. So there's work there that detailed planning is underway with several of the audits that are mentioned in the 15. So I'm comfortable that the work is progressing well at this normal stage of the year where we've sort of come out from the summer holiday season, and so we're moving into the autumn winter and the last quarter of the year where we tend to get more audits finalised and worked through. I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions on this report? Yeah, Robert, thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. It's not really a question as such. It's the bottom of page 92, and it's the second bullet point out of 3. I wonder if I could just have a little bit of amplification on what that means to... because although I think I understand it, I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, Adrian, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so I think you're referring to the second bullet point about the sort of golden triangle. Yes, it is something that's existed for a long time. There are 3 statutory roles within the authority. They're quite key roles in terms of governance. So you have the head of paid service, which has to be there, and the monitoring officer, that on the legal side. That is a statutory role as well. And the last one is the Section 151 officer, which is the Strategic Director of Finance. So there is that role. So there are three key roles there, picking up key areas of governance for the authority. And so what has happened is there's been some guidance come out on how those roles ought to work. And best practice in that area. I think what was driving the issue of the guidance for local authorities that was put out was not in Norfolk, but in other authorities. You'll be aware that there are sort of issues in terms of poor decisions, poor investments, and all sorts of problems. Public interest reports that have had to take place. So I think that was a point there that in those authorities where there were those sort of dilemmas and problems and crises, that often what they found was that those three roles, the golden triangle, if you like, that's meant to keep a hand on the tiller, I'd probably say, that wasn't working, perhaps, that there wasn't that checks and balance. They're meant to have checks and balances on each other in terms of, are we legal? Are we financially covered? Are we in a good place? And have we got the constitutional arrangements right? And have we got the right staff in place? And are the directors doing what they should? So when things are working really well, that golden triangle is working, and they are reinforcing each other and providing that expertise and detail. But maybe where that drops out, or they're not doing what they do, or they're not holding each other to account, maybe, that's perhaps where you'll find that there have been these crises and problems at other authorities. So it is a useful piece of advice, but I would say in terms of the feedback that we've had from our external auditors, from the work that my team do, and from what you see and the reports that you get, and how this audit committee works, you get assurance from the Section 151 officer on the financial side, and certainly the monitoring officer, but you'll be aware from cabinet meetings and full council that the chief executive and head of paid service is obviously making sure that we've got a steady ship. So hopefully that's helpful. So it's very interesting, but it's not anything that I perceive as an issue at Norfolk County Council.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's very interesting. I'd not heard of the golden triangle before, so I'm very pleased with the explanation. So yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Robert. I think most of us here probably thought it was some area of Norwich. I wonder if it just for the comprehensiveness of the minutes, do you think we could list who these three are? What was it again? Section 151 officer, and there was two others. You've got that, have you, Meg? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, because I'm sure we'll be tested at the next meeting who they are again. Councillor Jones, Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not a... There? Yes, it's not a question, it's a comment. Thanks very much for this report. It's really clearly written. I mean, I guess there's not an awful lot of laughs in your job, but you do put it across in a very comprehensive way, and I appreciate that, because not all reports that we receive have such clarity of thought behind them, so thank you.
First of all, thank you very much, but I'd like to thank you on behalf of the team, and I'd like to thank Jackie, because there's a lot of time that Jackie and the team put into collating the information and double checking things, and also trying to find out what's going on in the audit world and audit scene. So to bring that to you, because we don't just want to report maybe on how many numbers of reports we've done, but it's what they mean and what they're for and what the context of that is. So grateful for that feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. It's much appreciated by the team, I'm sure. So congratulations. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just probably my ignorance. Just on page 94, just looking at the total number of audits, 26, and various stages where they are, and that current position is considered satisfactory. I come from sort of an education background where satisfactory in your Ofsted report wasn't great. Could you just give us that context? What is satisfactory in terms of where is that on a sort of a scale of excellent, good, satisfactory, poor?
Thank you, Chairman.
I think Aidan's probably got a good answer. In the world of audit, satisfactory is normally sort of at the top. You know, we don't have all the excellence and whiz bangs. I think, yeah. But anyway, Adrian will probably give the full answer.
Thank you. Yes. So in terms of, if I'm understanding the question in terms of the descriptive side of it, if you like, right? Okay. Thank you. Yes. So yes, exactly as you're saying. I think when we're doing audits, we're measuring against a standard. You know, how are things meant to be run? What are the council's constitution? What's the council's policies and procedures? And they're generally based around law and the powers that the authority has. So there's the laws, there's all the different policies and procedures and constitution and so forth. There are procedures locally, and those procedures include financial regulations and contract standing orders and so forth. So there's the way that the council should be run, and that's how things are done properly. So when we're looking at it and auditing it, we are kind of, if you like, chained to the fact that that's how it's supposed to happen. And so therefore, when I say that it's acceptable, it means that as far as I can see, things are to a reasonable extent that those procedures and requirements are being met and followed. The standard, if you like, it's understood, it exists, it's being met. There we go. Where it isn't being met, we're then setting in place actions and recommendations about what needs to happen with that. And we do tend to find those because we do risk assess where we audit. We can't be everywhere, so we do go to the places that we think are most important to go to, either because of the magnitude or the significance of the services, or also that we might be aware that there might have been some problems or complaints or something like that. So we will sometimes go to those sorts of areas. And therefore that feeds into the fact that we've got things to report on. I think, so on the whole, I make a judgment from the reports that we've seen and what I'm aware of from other reports, and also what the external auditors do and find and so forth. So we add all that together, and that comes to a point where I would say it's acceptable because what I'm expecting to happen is happening. But what we do if we do find some elements of good practice because things are being done more efficiently or effectively, or that it's new or novel or working well, or actually it could be used to sort of promote to others to say this is a good way of doing something, we will recognise that, pick that up and promote that fact as well as that. But in the raw opinion, if you like, that is really just we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's great. So, yeah, hopefully that helps a little.
Any more points on this? No? Okay, if we move to the recommendations, then I won't read them all out verbatim because there's a number, but just consider and agree the overall effectiveness and adequacy, and that the audit service, Norfolk Audit Services continues to conform with the relevant standards. We're all happy to agree those recommendations. Agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Let me move to the forward work programme. Adrian, I suppose I'll let you talk about that in a moment, but I suppose the only things we've picked up from today is that in November we will hear more on the extreme weather events, and also bring back a bit more information for Councillor Kittle-Morris and all of us really, about the synergy between school building, school closures and home-to-school transport. It'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about that. Anything else on the forward work programme Adrian wants to flag?
Thank you, Chairman. Not particularly, just to mention on page 106. So it mentions that we've got the meeting that the Chairman mentioned earlier on the 25th of November. So that's an extraordinary meeting. That is where we will be bringing the statement of accounts for approval by the committee, as well as the annual governance statement. So it's that meeting, as well as having the presentation, is mainly about the approval and receiving the accounts, and also the audit results reports from our auditors. So we are anticipating they're in the building at the moment this week, so they're working through on that. So I'm not anticipating that there's any problems with that, but in a sense we are kind of reliant on the how the audit progresses for the external audit, but that is the plan at this stage, that it should all be coming together for the 25th of November. Then,
Just on that, Adrian, I was going to say, I'm sorry to cut across, we have traditionally had like an hour before that meeting with Harvey and the team to, guide and advise members on the review of those statement of accounts. If members are interested in that, we can have an hour before that meeting for him to talk us through it, if that's members are happy with that. I can see some nods and things, so that's Tony.
I just have to put my apologies in for that, because you've got an extraordinary meeting. We've got an AIDA conference in London that day, and they just clash. And being as I belong to 3 drainage boards, I always go to that.
Okie dokie. Well, we'll note those apologies in advance, and we'll try to find a suitable substitute, Tony, if possible, but we'll try. Yeah, but if we're happy to do that, we'll put in an hour, and we'll see if Harvey and that can do as we've traditionally done it in the past. So there's that. Adrian, anything else?
Thank you, Chair. No, the ones that follow on are February and April, where it'll get back to the normal sort of programme of reports. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the forward work programme? Sol.
Yeah, just to note, Mr. Chairman, on the top of page 107, it does mention medium-term environmental policy update, so that might tie in nicely with my EV-related question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There we are. And where we'll be after April, goodness knows. So we'll work up to April and see where we are. But thank you very much, Adrian. We're happy to agree that work programme. Agreed. Thank you. So the next meeting is the 25th of November. 2 p.m. We'll have a 1 o'clock. Will be a pre-meeting with Head of Finance. And if there's no other points, I will close the meeting there and thank everybody for their time this afternoon. And we'll see you all again next month. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.